Hi there, this is Martin Popoff. You're listening to Two Guys Talking Rush.
Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys.
And now, get ready for the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast with your hosts, John Kane and Dan Buxton.
I mean, back it up. You know, you could look at Hold Your Fire and Power Windows and look at the landscape of metal, you know, MTV, you know. I don't think I heard much Rush on the radio during those years, and I was a metalhead. I didn't get into heavily get into Rush until around 86. My first album, oddly enough, my first album was Power Windows, but I was seeing shows. I was going to see Motorhead, and I was part of that other thing. But somewhere in that metalhead mind, Rush captured something within that album. You know, it's so strange, you know. And then it opened up a level of curiosity that sort of opened more doors, and I was able to kind of look back and say, wow, this band is more than I could even sort of consume, you know. And then it just led into a long love and history with the band and sort of uncovering their past. But
part of it is the show stayed big as well too, right? The show stayed big. It kept growing. They kept adopting as much, you know, video technology and doodahs that anybody was doing. You know, and you know, there was a trend elsewhere, I guess, in rock and roll where the shows were getting smaller. But I mean, a lot of shows did stay big. White Zombie, right? I mean, White Zombie at that point, big show. But yeah, they kept that going. And then of course you've when you go to the live arena, you still have your back catalog, right?
Yep. Right. So they had that, they were able to support. But can you compare any other band to Rush in that vein? You know, where they've sort of survived this or been autonomous in their own little, other than the Grateful Dead, you know, because they still commanded a large audience. And, you know, obviously I don't know how much money they were making off their albums. I guess Touch of Grey was a big hit for them in that album. But really, is there any other band that could maintain this sort of level of continuity and loyal?
Two that come to mind, but they kept making their same kind of music, although sparingly, not that often, would be AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, right.
They remain big acts, but Ozzy kept turning in the same kind of albums he always did anyways. I mean, it wasn't nearly as radical as Rush.
Yeah.
And you know, and same with AC/DC. I mean, AC/DC had a huge career revival with Razor's Edge.
You're right. Yeah.
Around this time, because you know, Blow Up Your Video was kind of a bomb, and definitely a bomb, and Fly on the Wall was not that much bigger. You know, it's a little more beloved, but Blow Up Your Video is considered the worst AC/DC album of all time.
That's right.
A couple later was, but Razor's Edge was a massive album. It was a huge album. So
that was some after
bands from the 70s had a slingshot effect, but nobody was having those steady concert tickets being sold with making, you know, music that was pretty radical.
Well, I mean, even with AC/DC, there's a formula. They're not gonna change. I mean, maybe those with Blow Up Your Video, I think, and I remember that coming out. That's when I fell off. I mean, maybe even a little bit with Who Made Who. I was just like, oh, I'm all set. You know, it got soft for me. Fly on the Wall, actually, I think is a very good album. I like it. I saw that tour. It was a great tour. The Blow Up Your Video, I think I saw with Cinderella, and that was okay. But I think with AC/DC, there's a formula. You know what you're going to get. With Ozzy, you know, yeah, you're right. I think you're a loyal Ozzy fan. There are just Ozzy fans that are just so loyal, and of course he's got the back catalog. You know, I think after No Rest for the Wicked, I was just like, I'm done. You know,
No More Tears was massive.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. No
Osmosis. was big as well.
Yeah,
he
but
had
no
one just a couple of years ago. Black Rain, that was huge. It keeps on going.
You're right. I mean, we're off track here, but it is a good comparative analysis. But even the No More Tears, No More Tours, the small theaters, that was probably. I mean, I've seen Ozzy a number of times. That was one of the most memorable and amazing shows that I've seen Ozzy on. Is seeing him in a small theater and just, one of the, we love Ozzy, right? On some level. But going back to Rush, surviving these changes in the musical landscape, these trending musical changes, then we get into Counterparts. And I remember, Counterparts brings me back to my college years. I liked that album when it first came out. Mm-hmm. I thought it was great. There's some really great songs on that album. What happens at Counterparts? We lose the synthesizer, right? It's more guitar, founded in guitar playing, or heavier chords and things like that. What do you think of the songwriting on that album, Martin? The Counterparts album. Do you like it?
I think it's really good, and I think the main thing you get, it's not that much heavier than people sort of than the narrative. I mean, the narrative is that it's heavier than it really is. But I think that comes because Stick It Out was an advanced single and it was super heavy. But I mean, more so than the guitars are back, is more like the bottom end is back. The bass and everything is back, thanks to Kevin Shirley. And so, that was a good album. So I was pretty happy. I mean, it's coming out during the grunge time. I mean, and part of the reason people consider it the grungy Rush album is that damn video, right? The Stick It Out video is so grunge, right?
That's right.
Speaking of videos, which we're going to do, right? The video.
That's right. We're going to get into that. Yeah. And even, I think Geddy even like cuts his hair sort of Seattle-like. He's got this look.
And the big coats and recording outside and all that stuff.
The big coats. That's funny. And then, moving on, we take a break. 2002, we come back with Vapor Trails. And we've talked about Vapor Trails before. It's up there for me. I love that album so much. I think there's some great songs on there. We often on the show talk about the production, and I think David Bottrell is going to be on the show. He remixed the album under the direction of Alex and those guys. But what's your opinion of Vapor Trails, and do you have any favorite songs off that album? Or
Vapor Trails I thought was a really creative album. It was very strange, so I loved it for that reason. I mean, the lyrics were so heartfelt on it. I felt almost like it reminded me of a King Crimson album, like a little cross between 70s King Crimson and my favorite period of King Crimson, the red, blue, yellow period. So it reminded me of that. It because it felt like they were almost weirdly creating a whole new kind of music on it. So I thought that was really cool about it. Where's my copy here? But I mean, I'm looking at the songs here. Ghost Rider, The Stars Look Down. So much on here, right?
Earthshine,
especially, One Little Victory. I mean, it's when I think of this album, I think of like it being a wall of sound, almost like a tapestry, like a woven texture of sound. And like I say, I think it's almost like they're creating a whole new kind of music. So it feels it almost validates that idea that when Rush takes a long time between albums, you get radical changes when that happens. So I think it's one of the more really cool creative albums, and it really does create that narrative that Rush is kind of off in a place quite often, quite regularly, creating a their own kind of music. But this is almost like the most newly creative kind of music that they ever created, I thought.
Yeah, and you say wall of sound. I'm glad you said that, because you're exactly right. It does have that sort of force when you listen to it. As it relates to the remix, what do you think of the remix? Are you happy with the remix? Do you think
the remix is a help? It's better than the original, but but the original never came into the debate of me and my buddies that we thought it was crap, whether there was anything wrong with it. It's almost like this was something that later came up.
I had been listening to it for like years, for like several, like maybe 7 or 8 years, when someone finally was like, oh my God, I can't even listen to that album. It took the better part of a decade for me to find out that no, I was wrong. It's actually bad. I had to be told that. I liked it instantly the second I heard it. I liked the original mix better. But I don't know. I understand what you're saying about it being this kind of like more out there thing. Part of, I mean, the mix and like whatever problems people say it has, to me, it's all part of the package. Yeah. The flaws are important, and they make it this thing that's pretty unique in their catalog. Because everything else in their catalog, they're very perfectionist. It's, there's no part of it that escapes their control. This, I felt like it actually got a little bit away from them and was good because of that.
It's noisy, it's loud, it's urgent, which is kind of the way the performances are.
Right, exactly.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, even like a song, we think of songs in their back catalog that were songs that maybe signified a change to come or a harken back to a particular time. The song Vapor Trail on that album for me does that. I just hear little notes of like drinking a fine wine. You smell notes and taste notes of its surrounding. I mean, it's the best thing I could come up with. But Vapor Trail, the song Vapor Trail does that for me. It's like, wow, maybe this could be on like Signals or something. It just has that style to me. I love that song a lot, though. I think it's probably the highlight track for me, and then Earthshine, and then trickling my way down. So that's interesting. So how do you treat this era of Rush where Neil is sort of, I don't want to say sabbatical. He's on a path of finding himself. This is new self. How do you treat that in the book? It's such a hard thing to talk about, and for someone with that's faced so much loss. It's like, wow. And there's so many loyal fans that, are sensitive to this. As a writer, what do you do?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the lyrics are just heartbreaking lyrics throughout. And I guess in the book, I mean, he essentially is left alone to talk about it. And he does talk about it a lot. And that's credit to Scott and Sam in the interviews they got with Neil about that whole period. And Neil, kind of opens up and what I wanted to do is just let Neil sort of talk, although you do see a lot of Geddy and you do see a lot of Alex and even Ray talking about it this whole period where, that maybe they wouldn't carry on. But it's interesting. You call it an era, and I would never, again, when, going back to the whole cusp thing and Sweet Spot, I just can't even consider this album an era because it's so on its own. It's just a million miles from Test for Echo, and it's a million miles from Snakes and Arrows. And literally temporally in time, it's even far from all of those. Right. So
you're right.
This is this whole idea where, as I did in my History in 5 Songs episode, where I did include Rush as one of the 5 examples. Rush lines up with a bunch of pairs of albums, but it doesn't have a Sweet Spot or Cusp album, and not even every album is a pair. Like, I don't think Permanent Waves has a pair. I don't think Vapor Trails is part of a pair. I don't think Snakes and Arrows is part of a pair, or Clockwork Angels. I mean,
not even Hold Your Fire and Power Windows. You don't even consider
those are a pair.
Yeah.
Farewell and Hemispheres is a pair.
Yeah.
Caress of Steel and 2112 is a pair.
Yeah.
And maybe Moving Pictures and Signals is a pair, but that's it. Grace Under Pressure is on its own. Permanent Waves is on its own. Fly By Night's on its own. Rush is on its own.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the kind of thing. So like I say, it's a bumpy ride. They move fast. Yeah. between creative things, and when you get to Snakes and Arrows, they're a whole different band again. I don't know what they are at that point. They're still using all the tools that I sometimes liken Rush to the Smiths because I mean, not Smiths, Morrissey more so than the Smiths. It's like you listen to a Morrissey album and every song is using just regular rock and roll tools. And then you get to the next song and it's, what is it? Is it a hard rock song? Is it a power pop song? Is it a pop song? Is it a semi-punk song? Is it singer-songwriter music? It's you can't pin down at all what Morrissey is, yet most of the songs are essentially guitar, bass, and drums and a singer, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a little bit of Rush in a way, that and it's even more concentrated because it's a trio with keyboards. But not much else, right? It's literally guitar, bass, and drums and keyboards and a singer, yet so often throughout the catalog, they create this little weird, language that's about to go extinct, almost like a little tribal language somewhere in the world. And Rush is going to make it extinct because they're going to extinguish it themselves and move on to something else. So that's the funny thing about even like a Snakes and Arrows. It's such a presto in a way. Presto kind of got repeated once, but Snakes and Arrows never got repeated at all.
No.
Yeah, and if you notice, there's a sort of a trend here, and time is the operative word. Is between Test for Echo and Vapor Trails, there's 6 years, and between Vapor Trails and Snakes and Arrows, there's 5 years. Of course, you put in touring and all that, and then downtime, and then getting back into the studio. But yeah, you're right. Snakes and Arrows I really don't hear any of Vapor Trails and Snakes and Arrows. I have to be honest. I mean, I don't love Snakes and Arrows like so many other people do. I felt like I was forced to like it in a way so much because it was my favorite band.
To me, it's the Lost Rush album, and sometimes I forget Grace Under Pressure exists.
I know.
It's really weird. It's
and
like these two albums just slip under the carpet somehow.
Yeah. And I love Grace Under Pressure so much. Yeah. But yeah, Snakes and Arrows. I think there's some amazing tunes on there. Of course, the instrumentals are fabulous. And then, of course, we move into Clockwork Angels. How do you, as this being the capstone to their career, maybe in 2012 we didn't realize that, but I think maybe fans after. Around Vapor Trails, I'm thinking like, are they going to keep going? Because even then, you're like, wow, they're getting old, and the music's good, but how much longer can you keep up this momentum? And they're perfectionists. How long can a band keep doing that under those standards? And by Clockwork Angels, I mean, I had a sense that it was the final album. I don't know if it was ever released as saying this is our last album forever.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so there was always a little bit shred of hope. But how do you treat that in the book with Clockwork Angels? All right, here it is, the final. The curtain is being drawn on Rush.
Like everything in the book is treated at length, but when I think back to it, I like the album. I love the album a lot more than I do now. I actually don't play it very much anymore, kind of thing. But one of the funny things about it is I've noticed that even deep Rush fans have been confused about the storyline over time and how it dovetails with the book and all that. And that always reminds me of now what people say about Genesis Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, right? It's like the story is so befuddling. And it feels a little bit like that with Clockwork Angels. And, I love the fact that it's very analog sounding and it's really groovy. Like Neil grooves better on that album than he ever grooves. He's like a Dave Lombardo tornado of drums, right? All over that record, I think. And it's a pretty heavy album. But one more criticism, I think, I almost came to realize over the years that when they try to write heavy Rush in the later years, it gets grungy. Actually, it gets kind of like big and dissonant and blocks of chords rather than picked riffs like something like a Bastille Day or a Passage to Bangkok or something like that, right? Yeah. It got kind of like dum, 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 like a dinosaur, like King Crimson with Adrian Belew when you get up to Thrack or whatever, right? So it got kind of like big and bashy all over the place. Yet something in me was yearning for Alex to like peel off a nice note dance riff of some sort, and that really didn't happen, right? Yeah. So it got kind of caveman-y. To be Kevin Shirley about it, right?
Well, it's open as and people talk about it, and the band has talked about it being a concept album. Did you consider Snakes and Arrows a concept album? I mean, there was a theme to it. Do you consider that album a concept album, Snakes and Arrows?
I don't know. Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, it does feel like a whole bunch of separate songs, but I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer that question.
Well, if there's anybody to ask that question, it's you, Martin. But with Roll the Bones, I've heard some people argue that that's a concept album as well. Yeah.
Well, it's funny with all of these things. If you state the concept and frame it wide enough, like make the frame wide enough, everything can fit. You know, when you say, "Oh, it's an album about time," right? Everything can be a concept album. Right?
Well, it's about sound.
Well, as you know, as a writer, you sort of limit your palette to a theme, and then you stick within the theme, and it gives you more control over the color of that you use. You know, and if it gets too broad, it gets too messy. So I think that was maybe a stylistic approach to what Neil was doing. Is like, all right, this is going to give me more control, and whatever was inspiring Neil at the time, I'm sure he went with that, whatever he's reading or experienced in his life. But the ability to focus in and really kind of touch on a theme, whether it be about luck or chance or time, it gave him more control over what he was writing about, and then kept the album, by way of doing that, kept the album more focused. So I suspect one could confuse that with it being a conceptual piece, you know. Yeah. But I think Clockwork Angels is blatantly a concept album. I mean, that they went into it like that. So final talk on Clockwork Angels, The Garden. Does it give you sort of like an eerie feeling that the song The Garden, lyrically, the way it sounds, I think that guitar solo, as simplistic as it seems, isn't. It's sort of like a, I don't know, it's haunting. That song being the final song, what's your take on this? Is that prophetic or what, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really does stand out as the song that Rush fans are kind of pushing forward as the big thing that they did. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that they would close with that. And it does send you off on kind of like a soundtracky cinematic sort of, you know, and then you ponder the way the band ended, like such a strange, gradual gray ending. It's like Neil comes out from behind the drums, and is this the last show? And it's Los Angeles. What does Los Angeles mean in the history of Rush and all this? It's just an odd place to end as well, but it's still like the center of, you know, pop culture or whatever. And it's a whole drama in itself, how all of that happened and the secrecy and everything. That's, I guess, why we're still talking about Rush.
That's so true. That's so true. Where can people, before we get into our video segment, where can folks find your book, and where can folks find more information on you and what you're doing, and keep up to date with your personal brand?
Pretty much all martinpopoff.com. I've been, as you know, I mean, over the years, a big part of what I do is the buying and reselling of any of my own books. So I'm constantly signing and sending out books, and I've got Driven. In fact, you know, they go up and down, but actually right now I can supply Anthem in hardcover, Driven, or Limelight and Driven, and I can supply Anthem even in softcover. Some people have wanted those. I don't put it on my website because myself and ECW, the publisher, we're all wondering how many people want this Anthem in softcover. It's a different price point and a different cover and that. But you know, I've had a few completists want it, so I sign all these and send them out. But yeah, martinpopoff.com. Every book that is in print is there with PayPal buttons. States, Canada, international.
And how's the response been to Driven and overall the entire trilogy?
Really good. Really good. I just got a royalty statement recently. They're selling lots of all of them.
Good.
And Driven is pretty brand new. You know, it was nice to be able to have access to copies a good month before they you know, the quote unquote release date. So I've mailed out many copies of Driven. It's kind of gone down now, but yeah, who knows? I mean, now it's officially out, so people are starting to ask me about it.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and as always, you know, Dan and I talk about this a lot. It's sort of like the pandemic in some way has pushed us to this conversation as it relates to music on the platform of lists. You know, we're listing everything now. Maybe it's midlife crisis. Maybe, you know, we're reaching a certain age, or we're looking back and saying, all right, let's measure what was good and what was bad, you know, because we're not getting that much good now or something. You know, I don't know what it is. We tend to look back as we get older, right? And we lived, you know, I'm so thankful that I lived through some amazing times as it relates to arena rock, and concerts and this sort of ongoing renaissance of music. I mean, I didn't grow up listening to the radio. I mean, I listened to the radio as a baby and growing up in the 70s, but that was a renaissance of music. The 60s is a renaissance, the 50s, and of course the 80s. But I think we've fallen off that in some way. Maybe there's someone would argue that with me. I hope some new millennial, Generation Z, whatever they're calling them now, would do that. But we thinking back, we've lived through some amazing times with music. Maybe that's why we're looking back and measuring it all and trying to figure out what it all meant. So with this show, this episode, I'm thinking like, how can we top what Martin's doing all over these platforms with lists and critical analysis of albums and says, hey, the rock video as it relates to Rush. And we haven't released these episodes yet, but we've interviewed about 3 or 4 directors of some fairly prominent Rush videos, some that we love and some that we make fun of, because I don't think Rush were ever famous for the quality and storytelling of their videos. For some reason, it didn't equate. And the guys often look uncomfortable in the video form. What's your take on Rush and this era of the music video from the 70s all the way through the 90s?
Well, you know what? Let me answer that as we go through our picks, because it'll be different as we go through our picks.
Let's do it. And maybe we can't show every video, but maybe we can show our number one video. If they're all different, I don't know what they're going to be, but just a snippet of it. Can't show us. Do you want to show a snippet of each one? I don't know how we're doing on time, but maybe one or whatever. It's up to you guys.
Boy, I don't know. I didn't think you were planning on doing that. I mean, are you editing afterwards as well? Or
yeah, I mean, this will serve the YouTube people, and we could probably, let's say what your number one pick is. We could maybe show a snippet of it and just play it, and we could look at it just for reference.
All right. I mean, do you want me to start at number 5?
Do you want start at 5.
All mine, or do you want to go in a circle?
We'll start. What do you think, Dan? I'll let Dan take it.
I like the idea of going in a circle. I think that's neat.
All right, do it.
Well, I'll go with my number 5 then. So my 5th favorite Rush video, I'll go with Far Cry. I think great techniques. It's gritty. It's weird. It's got the weird Getty dude in it, almost, right? That tall guy who's got the hair like Getty. It's got that stop motion thing. I don't know what's going on in it. But to your point, John, I mean, Rush is not very good at videos. But this is a good later Rush video with a lot of technology and a lot of interesting things going on, and it holds your interest because there's a lot of action in it. So yeah, I like the muted colors, the quick edits, the stop motion thing. So I'll go with Far Cry as number 5.
It's so funny because I chose Far Cry as well for many of those reasons. And yeah, when we talk about Rush in front of the camera for a video shoot, they don't look like they love it, and that's okay because they probably didn't love it. They just were obligated to do it. Far Cry for me was a video that didn't really have Rush in it. They weren't posing in it. There was some stop motion of them in the beginning, the little shots, but I'm a huge fan of stop motion. I've taught some stop motion classes in the past, and I love the technique. And I love the model building of that character, that Getty character, and then the actual little screenshots of the band. So yeah, Far Cry, excellent video. I forgot about it, actually. I'm dipping back because I don't watch a lot of Rush videos. I just don't do that. I like videos, but I never really go, I'm going to watch this Rush video. I think I tend to watch the ones that were cringeworthy more than I watch the better ones. And, I'll always watch Time Stand Still, and people hate that video, but I'll tell you, sometimes it's like, you could have all the money in the world, but you'll still eat, chicken livers because you had them as a kid because you were broke. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like peasant food, like it brings you back to what you were sort of grounded with, and that to me, I watch Time Stand Still, and as goofy as it is, I like the video, it's not my favorite, but Far Cry is my number 5 pick for those same reasons. Very grungy, very scratchy, stop motion, awesome song. And it didn't have correct me if I'm wrong, didn't have the baby in the carriage and the typical images of the Far Cry. You know, they use that a lot in the so that at the end of the pier, the Hugh Syme imagery, which, you know, it wasn't a lot of Hugh Syme in the video, I guess my point is being. So
all right, and number 5,
let's do it.
Mine is actually the 2020 version of the Spirit of Radio. That they did. It's a black and white animated thing that's really cool, and part of it for me is a sort of a sentimental thing, because we played it in one of the first episodes and it got blocked. So for me, that's a fond memory of, you know, early days of this podcast.
Yeah,
you're not really on the map until you've been blocked at least once, you know, in my opinion.
Cool. Yeah, my number 4 was Spirit of Radio, 40th anniversary, right? And I love the fact that, you know, Donna Halper's in it, and they bring in
Donna's
the other guys,
in it,
and Dave Marsden, and it's just I like that it's cartoony, yet they mix up the styles in it, and it's correcting a wrong, how there were no videos from that album or whatever, as apparently right at the time. So it's kind of cool. It's just a good. You know, you see the band performing in kind of like a modest environment, and it just feels really simple and back to basics. So yeah, that's my number 4.
Nice. Well, my number 4 is The Pass. I like Presto a lot. I like Roll the Bones a lot, and I think mostly people like Rush because in specific albums and eras, because it hit them at a time that was significant. I mean, Dan, you're a fan of the song The Pass, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I forgot about this video. It's shot all in black and white, and you know, there's wind machines, and Alex has sunglasses on, but to me it feels a lot looser than their 80s era, you know, the deep 80s era Rush, where they're sort of, you know, Geddy's got the mullet, and they're all just like looking like not knowing what to do.
Beer time.
Yeah, do it, man. But this video stylistically merges the theatrical components of I think like classroom, schoolyard elements, you know, thematically from the song, and then this sort of it's very you know, you get a sense of the environment they're in, that the director's shooting in, and it's just, I think it's a pretty good video, and I forgot about it, and I like the song. So and it sort of mirrors the album cover. It's in black and white. It's muted colors, and I don't know. Rush always had a sort of their finger on the pulse of youth in some way. Even their later years, they oddly seemed to know what was going on, and maintain that sort of connection with youth. I don't know what that is. I think that's another analysis. But you know, look at Subdivisions. You know. How old were they then, you know, and they were touching on these themes. Anyway, The Pass.
My number 4 is
okay.
Oh yeah, right. We haven't done your 4. Yeah.
Mine is actually, as John just said, Subdivisions. For most of the reasons that he said. I don't know. I really like you know, stuff from that period. They were still kind of making it up as they went along a little bit, and you know. There's stuff now that you would just never see in a music video that was made today or 10 years ago or anything like that. But I think it was a good expression, a good visual expression of what the song is about, without it being too much like, you know, here's something in the lyrics, now we're going to show a picture of that. You know, it's not representative like that, but it does sort of, it brings another dimension to the lyrics. I like that a lot. Also the part with the eggs.
Yeah. All right. My number 3 is The Trees. I love that it's a performance video, but it does have a little bit of production value with Alex at the beginning and the elegiac, you know, Welsh situation there, right? And I really like that. So it is a performance video, but not in front of a crowd, but it's a really good live performance of the song. So you're not getting a studio performance. You're not getting a ragged actual live performance. You're getting a really amazing performance of the song, and especially with Neil, drumming up a storm, doing all that great stuff he does in the trees, and it's recorded really well as well. And it's a very early video, so it's simple for the times, but it's no nonsense, and it does all the stuff you would want from an old video, rather than be completely cheesy about the whole thing. So other than that cool start with Alex, doing his best John Renborn, on the acoustic. Then you get into just what is a great kick-ass performance of the trees. So there you go. That's my number 3.
Yeah, I'm glad you for contrast, I'm glad you chose that. I sort of stayed away from the sort of origin story of rock and roll videos, because as when MTV gets big, they're starving for content. There's no good videos, and a lot of those early videos were just live videos, Foghat Live, whatever concert footage existed, choppy, insert single, and then there you have it. So I sort of equate that. And I like the early Rush videos because obviously because it's Rush, but it shows them as characters in some way, and like at what stage they were in, and obviously just how magical they were as a band in those early days. They were just such a different band, the myth and lore of early Rush, equatable to the myth and lore of Led Zeppelin in some ways, just the way they looked, really just big personalities. For me, number 3 is Big Money, and the reason why is because I am a child of the 80s. And this is an era of Tron and really bad 16-bit arcade games, and Big Money has all of that, and I think it's really funny video. And they actually, as far as miming is concerned, they're all at it. They're really dancing around in the video. It's that show of hands era, this, the 80s synth Rush. I like the song a lot. I love that album. I love 80s Rush a lot. Some folks are different about it, but a little tidbit here. The video for the track was directed by Rob Quartley, produced by Alan Weinrib, Getty's brother. Created by Greenlight Productions, using for the time state-of-the-art computer graphics. So if you watch the video, you're gonna laugh. Similar to those seen in the video for the song "Money for Nothing." So you can see elements of the style of that in the Big Money. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. The video also features the band performing the song in an oversized Monopoly-style board game with the words "Big Money," which I forgot about right in the middle, I think it's great. And I don't know. Listen, Rush played Big Money a lot for a long time in those sets, and for a very good reason. It's an excellent tune. It's a powerful tune, and even though in the mix of it all, of all that, really what people consider they're not best era, Big Money is a standout song for me during those Rush years. So I think the video is a relic, but also I don't know, it's sort of it lets you dip back into the 80s and get that vibe going on again. I like that part about it. So
cool.
Yeah.
Dan, 3.
My number 3 is off the same album as Mystic Rhythms, which is nobody's favorite video, but I don't know, I think it fits the song very well. It really didn't get played much, but I was like, oh, they may be onto something here. Also, that's my favorite song on that album, so I want to give that a little love. So Martin, you're number 2.
My notes on Mystic Rhythms.
Beer o'clock.
I went through all of them. Okay. And my notes on Mystic Rhythms said the video really helps the song. Nice 80s aesthetic, not cheesy, looks expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Can I say something? No, there's a whole crop. I forgot about Mystic Rhythms as a video. I was like, wow, they recorded but typically there's maybe 1 or 2 directors that did a crop of them, and the era of Grace Under Pressure, there's some really, they're heavy on storyline and story, like film. And if you remember the 80s commercial for the new Apple computer,
Yes.
It was 1984, and I get there's a lot of 1984 in those great Grace Under Pressure videos. So if you just look at them again, you're reminded. And Rush really are not in a couple of them. They're just like it's just like some director that's filming something elsewhere and then insert Rush. So it's just interesting, Anyway.
All right. So yeah, my number 2 is Distant Early Warning. Speaking of those videos, I love the 80s aesthetic of it. I love the underlighting, the big lighting. I love the red and whiteness of it, which matches up with the album cover. I find it's got a lot of energy. They do look like a modern band in that one. It's a great song. It's an almost an anthemic song in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think that the band actually looks pretty cool. Neil's in his cutoff shirt. It reminds me a little bit of the front cover of Jethro Tull A, that whole thing. I love the kid riding the bomb. So it's got a nice mix of narrative and the miming thing going on. So yeah, the whole modern vibe of it, I just thought it was clean and fresh with the colors they have. And it's a great song off of a great album. So there you go.
So true, man. Yeah. Is it my turn now? Sorry.
Yes.
All right, number 2. Yeah, I agree with you. That's a great tune. And check out After. Did you watch After Image? I was like, whoa, I forgot about After Image. But the kid riding the bomb, and that was early. I remember MTV that would come on. The kid riding the bomb. Like whoa. Anyway, number 2 for me. I'm putting these all together because it's from the same footage as the Limelight, Vital Signs, Tom Sawyer videos from Le Studio. To me, every time I watch those videos, every time I watched them back then, I always got goosebumps. I mean, just getting in those big, Barbra Streisand sunglasses or eyeglasses and the long hair and just the laid backness of this sort of, it harkens on the 70s, then moving into the 80s, right at that, I don't want to say sweet spot, but that era. And just the look and feel of the studio and the wilderness. And, of course, I think it was Limelight, which is probably my favorite of them all. It's just the German Shepherd in the beginning. And for fans that are listening, we actually have the director of those videos that has, that show's already been recorded. So we really deep dive into those recordings of those videos. But to me, it's just the Le Studio versions of those tunes, just wonderful. I love them. Yeah.
Cool.
My number 2 is Xanadu, which I just have to shoehorn in there anytime I possibly can. All it is just a performance video, and they're miming to the record, but I think it's great anyway. And they just seem like they want to be there. That's their natural environment. It captures them well, and I like it every time I see it. I think they also sped up the song the tiniest little bit on that, so you get this kind of like Alvin and the Chipmunks sort of feeling. And also it's good for people who feel like Geddy Lee's voice is not high enough. So, it's good for that.
Yeah. Nice. All right. My number 1 is Tom Sawyer. To me, it's the most iconic of all the videos. And again, seeing the outside, the snow outside, you see it in daylight, you see it in twilight kind of thing. I love that it's the actual performance of the song. Like, this is one of the most studio, outside of Steely Dan, this is one of the most studious performances ever. And you're actually seeing the song getting made. And it's cool. You look closely though, when Geddy's doing the singing, he's just for comfort, for support, he's got his hand on some congas, right?
Yes.
And as he's singing, and of course, when he's singing, Neil's not playing drums behind him, right? So it is the actual perfect performances of all these things. But then I guess, they're doing pretty much everything live, to make this song happen, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, you just get all that iconic stuff from Le Studio, pretty close shots. You don't see a lot of what's going on. But I love these videos. I think Thin Lizzy's got some of this stuff as well. Yeah. But I love these, and April Wine actually at Le Studio has this as well, where you get to see Thin Lizzy's not at Le Studio, but April Wine at Le Studio, off my favorite April Wine album, Harder Faster. You see some of the actual, I think it's the actual recording stuff.
Wow.
that goes on with it, right? But yeah, I think Tom Sawyer, I knew when I was compiling this list, it kind of has to be top. It's the central most famous Rush song of all time. It's a really darn good Rush song. If it's not your absolute favorite, you'd be crazy not to have it in your top 5 or 6, right? So yeah, there you go. Yeah, number 1, Tom Sawyer.
It's funny because that's why I grouped those 3 videos, because the Toms, they were all shot at the same time over the same period of time by the same director. And I think if I was to choose any of them as the one, it would be Limelight for me, just because I think I like Limelight a lot more than I like Tom Sawyer. But yeah, you're gonna love that episode where we really deep dive into how those videos were created, and we'll learn a lot about that time with Rush. So number 1 for me is Subdivisions by far. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I'm that kid, you know what I mean? And I was Rush shamed, and like every other Rush fan, sort of cast aside, cast out, right? I love the fact that the video is muddy looking, and you can't really define the details of things because the technology was subpar compared to now, but just that and also the treatment of the video as it relates to editing and the style of editing, sort of that cheap, kind of cheap and fast editing that you would do like at a local cable access television. That's what it feels like to me. Like, hey, let's put together a video, but on top of it, you have an incredible fucking song. I mean, Subdivisions to me is probably like my favorite Rush song for so many reasons. It's such a anthemic, meaningful song to me. But yeah, so it says here, I got a little tidbit here. The promotional video scenes were filmed in Toronto, as you probably know, Martin. The downtown scenes were filmed in downtown Toronto, most notably the opening zoom out shot of the intersection of King and Bay Street, while the suburb scenes were filmed in Scarborough, Ontario, near Warden and Finch Avenues. The aerial zoom out is of Sandy Haven Drive in Scarborough at the northeast corner of Warden Ave and McNichol Ave. The high school scenes were filmed at Lamoureux Collegiate Institute, and the video features scenes of the Don Valley Parkway. So it's like it's got everything in it that's authentic and meaningful, and it's a major rock and roll band, that's got its finger on the pulse of the youth of the day. It doesn't film it. They don't film it at a studio, man. They are in a high school. They're at ground zero of what the song's about. Mm-hmm. That's fucking great, and that's why to me that's my number 1 video. Nice. Yeah, nice. Totally. Yeah. You did.
Again, I don't want Martin to think I'm stalking him, but my number 1 is just an early warning. I think it's conceptually, it's their best video. It's the one that it just seems the most them of everything that's, not a performance video, but that's like, okay, we're storyboarding this. Here's our idea. Here's this. It makes the most sense that it's them. I think it shows them in the best light. And Martin, like you said, the Dr. Strangelove kid riding the bomb, to me, that's in any video, that would be probably the most iconic moment. I thought that was brilliant. And I mean, I can remember, I think I was in like 10th grade when that came out, and I remember watching that and being like, wow, this is really not like the other stuff that's on there. It fits well with the vibe of the album. There's no part of it where, I don't know, nothing seems ill-fitting. Like, it really seems like a natural thing for them. And for a band that was not that crazy about having to do videos, I would say this is the one that probably showed them in the best light, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, this is great. I mean, listen, just by way of us rating these videos, we've discovered a lot of things. One is the budget. Yeah. Right. Secondly is Rush weren't very good at videos because they didn't like them, probably. There was a pain in the ass. You gotta, you gotta promote the album in some way, and then what? You gotta compete with everything else that was going on during that MTV era. Also, too, at some point, the public, the consumer base starts judging music based on what people look like, and that sucks. And I think that's the downfall of the video. I like the art form of the video. I like a lot of videos for, I mean, listen, Weird Al Yankovic, you know, I could watch his videos all day. I think he's fabulous. But you start judging a band by the way, you know, but judging the music of a band by the way they look, that's a real problem for me. And, you know, what if Rush didn't have to put their faces on the damn video? Maybe they would have got more fans. How many people just looked at them and said, oh, these guys are weird? You tend to get judgy when you start to look at things in that way, you know. I don't know. I mean, I didn't love the era of videos for that reason. Right. You know, with Foghat, I mean, imagine if it was MTV and Foghat had to put up videos. All right, guys,
they did. They had one or two.
Yeah, but the early live stuff, but later on the conceptual stuff, it's like, you know, how many people are just like, ooh, you know, sort of a lot of vanity, a lot of vain, you know. But
well, I mean,
big budgets.
It's a separate discussion, but you know, I mean, for me, I think music videos were the worst thing to happen to music ever. Yeah. Well, I mean, now there's Spotify and that sort of thing, but you know, music video, by sort of visualizing the music for you, they're taking away from you like the whole experience of listening to music. It's about your relationship to the music. Neil Young said once that trying to visualize it takes away like the depth of it, of the experience. And I kind of agree with that. Most of the music that I like the most is there's no video for it. I like performance videos. I like that sort of thing. But when, you know, when it got to be more like, you know, Madonna in Venice with the tiger, then it's like, I'm out. I can't do this.
I'll tell you, if I ever see David Lee Roth, California, I'll throw myself off a bridge. Like, I can't bear it. You know, that video is like, oh,
but he was doing exactly what was demanded at the time.
It's entertainment. He's an entertainment.
It's entertainment. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like it goes from art to entertainment. Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking with my hands a lot today.
No, just, you know, there it is, you know. Yeah. Well, Martin, I can't thank you enough for putting up with us again.
No worries.
You're welcome on our show anytime to promote anything you got going, even if it's non-Rush related. You just want to pop on and have a conversation. And your buddy with Sea of Tranquility, if you ever want to pair up and do a Force of Rush conversation, Force of Rush and a Force 10, Force 4. I don't know.
Force 10,
Force 10. Yeah. What do you think, Dan? You got anything to say?
We greatly appreciate you coming on and making the time to be here. We always appreciate your perspective, and your 3 books together look very handsome. When you held them up like that, I was like, there you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Almost as if you could have a pipe.
Excellent. You know, one funny thing I wanted to mention.
Do it.
This is a funny thing about Driven. So a couple days ago, I was looking at this cover. And I go, dang, you know, every time you do a CD reissue thing, someone screws something up where the spines don't match or something's not consistent. I thought something's not consistent about this, right? And I was looking at it and going, well, the gold foil, it's just Driven's just in the gold foil or whatever. But the fact of the matter is I looked really closely and the Driven actually is in a different color gold foil that matches like the yellow theme of the whole thing. So it's funny. So this is a different gold foil than this gold foil. So alas, it's not inconsistent. So because Anthem was blue themed and Limelight was red themed, right? So this one is properly yellow themed through.
If they're 3 different colors, then that's fine. If it's 2 are the same color and 1 is different, I'm not sleeping that night.
I know exactly. Yes, that's what I thought. With I was looking at it one day and I thought this is just gold foil. This is not yellow. And then I looked really close. It's like, it is different. So very cool.
That's funny. And as far as copy editing, you have an editor you're working with that's looking at your words?
There's a few different editors there. It goes through a bunch of different steps. And then I kind of stopped looking at it and I can't look at it anymore. And then I'm just cringing, hoping there's not errors or whatever.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Yeah. Wow. Well, and by the way, Driven, did you have another name for the book?
Boy, no, not that I can think of. We did want it to be one word. I like the fact that it's like well into the 90s, 1996 or whatever. I like the fact that it's, a song about career and careerism, Driven, right? it's a good, strong, positive, action-packed word. So no, do you have any examples? What would be a Rush song with one title with a one-word title, like Anthem, like Limelight, that would have fit? Is there another one?
Virtuality.
Totem.
Yeah. Totem. Nocturne on this one. What do we got on Roll the Bones? Bravado. Heresy. See, none of these really apply. Neurotica doesn't apply.
Neurotica.
What do we got on Counterparts? Animate.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Driven's probably
that's a good one.
Choice.
Yeah, that was good.
I probably did look at that and make sure it was a good choice.
Yeah, just curious about your choices, and sometimes there's always something else in the pipeline that you have, and you
Carnies. Yeah, Caravan. No, I mean, I guess it's really the only choice.
There it is. Yeah. Martin Popoff for Two Guys Talking Rush. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Talk to you later.
Dan, that was a pretty good episode. I think I was probably one of our best. I would say so. Yeah. And
I'm also happy when anyone drinks on our show. I love when people drink on the show. I don't know why, but to me it's like, all right, good.
I think he might have been getting a little saucy on us, a little snappy and saucy with us.
No, just a couple of beers.
Loosened up. I think that's what it was.
He had a little,
He was loosey. He was a little loosey.
He was loosey goosey.
Martin's awesome, man. We have so much respect for Martin Popoff, and I hope that fans enjoyed the extra special treat of doing our video ratings segment of the show, because I know Martin comes up with an incredible amount of ideas regarding lists and ratings and this sort of critical assessment of varied topics on music and as it relates to rock and roll, heavy metal. And I think he actually enjoyed that one. I think that's one he hadn't done yet, rating Rush videos. And yeah,
I've never seen him. I mean, he and especially I'm blanking the guy's name from Sea of Tranquility, but they do a lot of shows together. I've never seen them do
Pardo.
That's Pardo, right? Exactly. Yeah. I've never seen them do videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we threw a little something new in there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and as for fans, look into the Rush video catalog. There are a lot of them, and as we said on the episode, of course we talked about Martin Popoff's book, and everybody go out and buy a copy of the book. Please support Martin's work. He certainly puts a lot of effort into it, and he's a great writer, and he's done his research, and he's renowned. At this point, he is renowned. But Rush videos, anyway, we made some jokes that. Although some Rush videos get sort of, I don't know, spat upon or something, or it's kind of looked down, frowned upon. It was an era of a band who, even if they didn't put out a video, still would have filled stadiums. However, music record companies, being what they will, influence many bands to say, well, let's try to sell let's get a single out. Let's try to get you guys out there, compete with the MTV era. And of course, Rush and when it's just Rush in the video in the early days, or that I don't even want to say sweet spot. We talked about sweet spot on the show, but that point where Rush are sort of featured in the video at the height of the MTV era, they just don't look happy at all. And it's true, they just look kind of miserable.
They were probably being like as good sports about it as they could be, and they recognized there was a necessary evil in the music business at that time. But yeah, I mean, all things being equal, I'm sure that they would have been perfectly happy never to do a video if they could have gotten away with it.
Yes.
I'm glad though that when they did do it, they made an effort. They didn't just put any old shit out there. I was glad that they were like, no, if we're putting our name on it, it has to reach a certain standard.
One thing I didn't get to mention is like towards the 90s, towards let's say Presto, the videos start to get better with Rush in them, and there seems to be more of an artistic presentation, more of a, let's say, a voice in the videos. I don't know if that had to do with budget or just good art direction, but they seem to get better in that way. I think previous, during that era of Rush in the 80s and MTV, producers, art directors, they didn't know what to do with Rush. How do you the songs, let alone the song that they're presenting is sort of weird. How do you get that within a few weeks time, and then create this artistic voice with it, visual voice? But so I think that's what happened. I mean, listen, Time Stands Still. It's like the Altamont of Rush videos. It gets beaten down, man.
At the same time, though, it's one of their most popular and well-known videos. So it's like, and Altamont, no one talks about that, but it was so popular.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people went, that's not the first thing people.
It's popular because it was bad. I mean, it was popular for a negative reason.
I think there were like 500,000 people there. I mean, it was well attended and that sort of thing. Just there's the small matter of someone being murdered and and Marty Ballin getting his teeth knocked out.
It's an exaggerated analogy,
yes,
but it's as close as I could come to. But anyway, I mean, I think that it is true. Everybody that has Rush shamed me in my life, they will never not mention Time Stands Still, that the song and then the video, especially sort of accentuating the song and the flying around.
They seem to have a good sense of humor about it, though. The times I've ever seen any of them interviewed about it, like they laugh a little bit and they're like, yeah, that was silly, and then they just kind of move on. And it's like, that's exactly how you do it. That's how it should be done. What you were saying though before about how in the 90s it seemed like the videos were getting better, I think they've been doing it for longer, so they were kind of more like old hands at it, and also just the form had evolved and the people making videos had more experience at it. So videos generally, I think, were getting better. But then they stopped showing videos on MTV and it became, not an issue anymore. So.
Yeah, we'll be doing more critical assessment of videos as we do more shows. I've done some research on the Time Stands Still video, and it is, when you get into what the artist, because it was an artist that produced that video. Again, this was a time where MTV was starving for content, and these video artists were surfacing and sort of blazing their own trail. There was an artistic approach and aesthetic intentionally for this video. The artist did hear the music and had an idea, and the idea was the result of the Time Stands Still treatment. Anyway, on and on and on. There's going to be more of that. Well, Dan, another incredible episode of Two Guys Talking Rush.
As always, all of them are fantastic. We have no bad episodes.
Well, my name's John Kane.
I am the delightful Dan Buckspan.
And what can I say, folks? Rush rules.
Two guys are talking, rush 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 two guys.